You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I am Mike.
And this is episode 91, Masters of VGM.
We are part of a grand scheme of VGMany.
That's why I like that word, VGMany.
VGMany.
It's better than VGenemy, because that would be intense.
That would be very intense. Yes. We are so grateful to be joined by so many other people of the video game music podcast realm that are doing this Masters of VGM thing. So for those not in the know and you're listening and you're like, what are they talking about? Let's break it down. Our good buddy Bedroth, who is the co-host on VGMVGM podcast, which is Very Good Music, Video Game Music Podcast. He is doing this thing that he put together with a bunch of other video game music podcasters called Masters of VGM.
So I feel like the original idea still kind of fits, although we've kind of widened it a bit more. But the original idea was that it was going to be like the Mount Rushmore of VGM.
Right.
If you could make your own Mount Rushmore and put 4 faces up on it, or more or less.
Yeah.
Who would be up there? Like, who are your top VGM composers?
Right.
And
right.
so we haven't really collaborated. So I believe Ed Wilson at the VG Embassy, obviously Bedroth, Rhythm Pixels,
Yep.
VGM Journey, a lot of the
Test
other...
Score, I think. Yeah. A ton of video game podcasters, video game music podcasters are doing this.
Yeah.
You can actually get access to all of the podcasts on mastersofvgm.com. So we will be joined by all the other people that are doing this in June 2022. In fact, there's even a disclaimer right here on the website that says which composers will join the pantheon of legends known as the Masters of VGM in June 2022. Come join your favorite video game music podcast and maybe discover a few new ones. Hint, hint. Welcome all new people as we determine who is fit to stand among these titans.
See, that I think is a little difficult or a little rough, because I feel like if you're a newer composer, not that you don't belong in the group, but
Sure.
it's a little bit harder to get into the group, because a lot of the people that especially the people that we're going to be talking about, you and I feel like a lot of people that the other podcasters are going to be talking about are long-standing, really seasoned composers. And that's not to say that they are better than some of the new people that are coming in, but there's just so much depth and so much content out there already that I mean, I found it hard to pick anybody new. Again, like I don't want anyone to think that I don't like any newer composers.
Sure, of course.
We talk about plenty of them.
We talk about all sorts of new stuff, old stuff, everything. Absolutely. But At the same time, going back to what you originally said, this is kind of like a Mount Rushmore situation, you know? Like, who would be your personal top 4 on the Mount Rushmore? So that's kind of how we approached this. We added in a bonus composer, which was the intro that brought us in. What little ditty was that, Justin? I've never heard that before.
Yeah. That's a joke that never gets old.
Oh no, never ever.
So that was the Super Mario Brothers Overworld theme from Super Mario Brothers, the 1985 NES game, composed by Lord and Master Koji Kondo.
Great grandpappy of video game music. Tell me, what are your fondest memories of Super Mario Brothers? Since, I mean, this is, everybody knows the song. If you don't know the song, you're like 2 years old. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, this is some of the earliest video game music that I have ever heard in my life. I know I've talked on the Justin's Picks episode how a lot of my early memories were of the Intellivision and some of the music that came from there, like Burger Time and stuff like that.
Sure.
But, I mean, this song was everywhere when I was a kid. I mean, when we were kids, between, you know, just going to a friend's house that had an NES, having an NES at home, going to my cousin's house that had an NES in this game, going to Service Merchandise or Kmart and having the
Service
demo
Merchandise.
Stations. Yeah.
That takes me back.
Takes me way back.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. I mean, there were different raps that were done on this. You know, we listened to a very inappropriate one earlier, but there's also, you know, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. They made a rap.
I love that song.
Yeah,
it's so
like,
good.
If you are in our age group, it is impossible that you have not heard this song. Because even if you didn't play video games much, it permeated the culture. And I think that says a lot about Koji Kondo's ability to make a really catchin' tune.
All of that and a bag of chips for me.
Yes.
This was the first game I ever owned. I got a Nintendo in 1988, thanks to my grandfather, and he theoretically ruined my life. So thanks, Grandpa. Yeah. But no, in all seriousness, this was the first game I owned. This was the first song you heard when you turned on Mario. It's iconic. It's as pop culture as Mickey Mouse.
Okay.
Let's say that.
Yeah.
But sound-wise, like to really actually kind of break it down, I always pictured this as like a reggae song.
Yeah.
You know, da 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 da.
I mean, I didn't know what reggae was when I was a kid.
No,
but
none of us did.
Growing up and understanding more about like how music works and stuff like that. Like, it definitely is in that reggae sphere and
reggae big band.
Yeah. And I mean, Koji Kondo has said as much, so it's not even really up for debate.
Him and Hip Tanaka.
Yep.
Both were huge reggae fans and classical music fans, and so that's really it. I don't know. How could you not have this in an episode? You're talking Masters of VGM, like this is the song that followed all other songs. I mean, yes, was there video game music before the Mario Overworld theme? Sure.
The Burger Time theme.
Absolutely.
That predates this.
Yep. Pac-Man.
Yep.
You know,
Plenty of things.
Tons of stuff. But
this is iconic.
The impact that Super Mario Brothers had, we would not be here today without Super Mario Brothers. We would not talk about video game music. We would not listen to video game music. I truly don't think that this would have had the impact that it had if this did not come out. If Super Mario Brothers did not exist.
I agree.
Yeah. I got nothing else to say about it. Let's move on to, Koji Kondo, really, do we need to talk about him? We've talked about him almost every episode.
I feel like one of the things that we probably won't be doing as much in this episode is listing off games that these folks have worked on. Because almost everybody here is somebody that we have talked about at length, just over the course of this podcast.
Yeah,
I think there's a couple people here that we might touch on a little bit, but I think more than anything else, what we are going to talk about is just the impact that these composers and their music has had on us, and why we've chosen them to be on our Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, this was absolutely just this has got to be on there.
Yes,
sort of thing. But I don't know,
and that begs the question.
Yeah.
Is Koji... So we've each picked... This episode is theoretically potentially shorter than other episodes because we've each only picked 4 tracks instead of 5 each.
Right.
Because Mount Rushmore has 4 faces on it.
Right.
So that begs the question, does Koji Kondo make it on that Mount Rushmore, or is he like...
He's above it?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So he's part of it, but he's not one of the main four faces. He is just like above and lording over the rest.
Here, I'll make everybody mad. He's the Barack Obama on top of the Mount Rushmore. The greatest president. No. I just pissed off so many people. Anyways.
He is, yes.
Yes. Let's move on to your first master of VGM. What do you got?
Okay, so no surprise. This is going to be Nobuo Uematsu.
Yes.
So I've chosen a song that is one of my favorites and that has had a lot of impact on me. This is Melodies of Life from Final Fantasy IX, which came out in the PS1 in 2000. Welcome back to Masters of VGM here on XVGM Radio. That was Melodies of Life from Final Fantasy IX, the 2000 PS1 game, and it was composed by Nobuo Uematsu, and I should also mention the vocals there are by Emiko Shiratori.
Right. Yeah. Good vocals. Great song.
Yes.
Really good. I mean, you know, it's a Japanese ballad.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But it's just... It's beautiful. There's no other word to describe it. If you had describe this in one word, that would be it, in my opinion. I mean, you got those like really rockin' parts where like it kind of woke me up out of nowhere.
Oh, that little guitar solo in the middle?
Yeah, just because like it's not like it was putting me to sleep in the negative sense, but it was so
very soothing.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, and it just kind of caught me off guard that I was like, oh wait, there's a guitar. So, but I kind of now want to play Final Fantasy IX.
You should. It's a very fun game.
Yeah.
So the version that we played was the original, the Japanese version. In the English version of the game, there is an English version of the song.
Okay.
Which is the one that I don't want to say that I'm more familiar with it, because I really enjoy the Japanese version of the song.
Sure.
And maybe it's just because like I know... not the translation of what they're saying, but I know the English version so well that to hear it in another language is just a different type of beautiful to me.
Okay.
But the reason I picked Nobuo Uematsu, I think, is kind of obvious. Like Final Fantasy itself has just had a very large impact on my life. It was one of the first video game RPGs that I really played and really grabbed onto.
Started with 2.
I started with 1.
1, right, that's right.
On the NES.
Yes.
And then I didn't know there was a 2 until 3 came out, and I was like, whoa, they made a sequel? How did they make a sequel to 1? Like, that game ended pretty solidly, and it wasn't until later that I realized that they are all, like, standalone stories.
Wow, they came out with a second game, and they called it 3. That must have, like, blown right past 2. Like, 2 was so good, it never came out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I went back and found out about 2, or like as it should be known for, but you know they renumbered things in America, and I mean they were all really good games. I mean, even now I have 1 and 2 on the Origins collection for PS2. I have 3 on the DS.
That's a rough way to play the.
No, I know. Well, 1 and 2 on Origins on the PlayStation is not as bad.
Yeah.
4, 5, and 6 on the PlayStation, that's rough. Because of the menu issues.
Oh, unplayable.
Yeah.
I can't. 5 and Chrono Trigger, I think, or 5 and what was it? 5 and 6 came out on a collection.
I think it's 5 and 6 and 4 and Chrono. I can never remember, but
I don't know.
4, 5, 6 and Chrono Trigger
are awful.
In some pair came out as
so bad.
Chronicles, and so, I don't
They're
know.
unplayable in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't want to get too deep into it because that takes. I feel like it's going to take away from
the positive,
the positive stuff and what we're talking about here.
For sure.
But yeah, I've played some of all of them. I have not beaten all of them. Like 3, my save file is right at the end. I haven't beaten the Cloud of Death or whatever it is. 5, I just never got very far in. I played it on an emulator long time ago and got maybe halfway through the game, and then I tried playing it on the PlayStation when they did the Chronicles thing, and it just, like you said, it's kind of unplayable.
Well, 5 is great. I loved 5, but
the menu issues is the main problem.
Oh, for sure.
Them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But 5, I got pretty far, and I still haven't beaten it though. It's good. I have the GBA
you haven't
version.
beaten it, but it's your favorite Final Fantasy?
No, 7's my favorite.
Oh, that's right.
7 will forever be my favorite.
Yeah,
that was the first Final Fantasy I ever played.
Right.
So, but then I'd probably say 5.
Yeah. That
I really like 5.
Yeah, but 9 holds a special place in my heart for a number of reasons. For one, I felt like 9 was a very good, and a lot of people have said the same thing, but 9 was a very good return to form. Like, you had 7,
right.
7 was kind of like cyberpunky and futuristic-ish, and 8 was very much like off the reservation. There was a lot of things that were in there. It was a Final Fantasy, but there was so many things just about the mechanics and whatnot that felt weird. Like, for one, the monsters, the world leveled up with you. Like, there was nowhere you could go to grind out easy monsters. Everything was always at your level. The
orphanage.
I mean, there's the orphanage thing, which they've never done before in a Final Fantasy,
right?
And they've never done since because they heard your complaints.
Yeah.
There wasn't really any I feel like there was a crystal, but I cannot for the life of me remember what the crystal was.
In 8?
In 8.
Really?
Yeah. Every Final Fantasy technically has crystals of some sort. Like in Final Fantasy 1, it was the orbs of light that were the crystal. In Final Fantasy 7, it was the materia.
Yeah.
There was something in 8, and I just cannot remember it.
In the anime series, it was the crystal was in the girl's butt. you remember that?
I do. Oh, wow.
I remember watching that and being like, what? What am I watching?
Yeah.
It was very
that was the one with the gun. All the summons or all the magic was done through like the gun.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Oh boy.
But yeah, I mean, so 9 like brought back the crystal. It was a major central part of the story.
Yeah.
They brought back a lot of the like classic job classes and stuff. So I really enjoyed it for that. And it was the first, I don't remember if it was the first video game that I bought with my own money, but it was definitely the first Final Fantasy that I bought with my own money.
Interesting.
Like I had a job, I had saved up for it, I'd pre-ordered it, and I was super excited.
It was 2000, so you were like 16.
Yeah.
Just going on 17.
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah. So that makes sense. That checks out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This song is like the last song in the game. This is, you've beaten the game, and it is, I cried.
Time to weep.
It absolutely is.
For sure.
Every time I hear the song, that's exactly what it does to me.
Gets emotional.
I get very emotional, and it's just, it's a beautiful song, and there's so much about it and about the game, and just even the lyrics. It's very much a song about like, hey, I'm either dead or probably going to die, and you and the world need to move on, and like here is a lot of encouragement, and like you need to live on, you need to continue, you need to make it to your destination regardless of what happens to me or anybody else.
Sure.
It's just, it's a lot.
Yeah, that's a heavy hand to be dealt in VGM.
Yes.
For sure. For me, probably the end theme from Chrono Trigger. That's a pretty emotional, heavy one for me.
Yeah, going through and revisiting all the different worlds and stuff.
Yeah, just in general, the song in and of itself is just kind of an emotional recoil. It's just a shot back through the whole game, but in addition to that, it revisits some of the melodies from, it's a heart wrencher for me personally. But that's what good VGM do.
Yes, sir.
All right, so Nobuo Uematsu, I mean, we play every episode almost, so I don't think we need to talk about him.
No, I don't think we're going to go deep into that. Like every Final Fantasy and so much more.
Yeah.
Rad Racer, we always like to
toss that in.
Yeah. We always like to toss in Rad Racer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just such a quality composer, and this to me is the pinnacle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you got?
So my first pick is no surprise to anyone who knows me. This is by far my favorite composer of all time for VGM. It is Iku Mizutani, and we're going to be hearing a song that he did off the Shatterhands soundtrack, which came out on the NES in 1991, and this is labeled as BGM 5. thanks for joining us back on Masters of VGM. That was Shatterhand, the NES game that came out in 1991. That was VGM 5 by my personal favorite composer for video game music, Iku Mizutani. Mm-hmm. I never played this one growing up. I didn't really know anything about Natsume or anything. I don't think I owned a single Natsume game as a kid. Maybe one game, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But I discovered all those games through my buddy Brian, who has been on the show before. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Brian and I would just hang out in his apartment, in college, and we would just play emulated NES stuff that we never got to play as kids. And I remember he showed me Shatterhand, and I was like, what is this? Like, this looks ridiculous. And it's ridiculously amazing. It's one of my favorite games on the NES, for sure. Not just because of the amazing soundtrack, but it's a really fun action game in the vein of, like, the Batman game on the NES, like the Sunsoft Batman game, Mega Man. I mean, there's just so many influences from all the games that I love just rolled into, like, just this over-the-top action game. You play as this guy Shatterhand, which I think his name is Steve or something like that in real life, and he's like an ex-cop or something that gets his arms ripped off and gets replaced with like metal arms, and then they reskin them to be like a skin, like actual skin or whatever. Yeah. But he has control of like these robots that like kind of hover over him that you can collect like these little icons for. If you punch the icon, it'll give you different letters, and the different letters have different robots. So you can kind of pick which robot you want, and some are good combinations, some are not so great combinations, but there's a lot of them. Like there's a bunch. There's probably about like maybe 8 or 10 combinations or whatever that you could do something like that. It's cool. It's a really fun action game with great music. Iku Mizutani was the only composer on this one. Hiroyuki Iwatsuki did the sound effects on it, but honestly, it's interesting because we interviewed Iku Mizutani back on Pixel Tunes Radio, my former podcast, and it was just a dream to talk to this guy. We were only able to do like an email interview, back and forth with him or whatever, and get everything retranslated by our buddy Brian over at Pixelated Audio. He helped us out immensely with that. But we just learned so much about like video game music and the Japanese industry and like how game music is made. And it answered a lot of questions as to why it is that I always think that Iku Mizutani did all these games, when in fact like his lineup of games that he did is actually a lot smaller than I thought it was. And the reason for that, like I would be like, oh, he did this game, and then it was like, oh no, Hiroyuki Iwatsuki did that. Oh, okay, well I know he did this game. Nope, Hiroyuki Iwatsuki did that one. So I was torn on whether or not I was going to do Hiroyuki Iwatsuki or Iku Mizutani, but then like I went back and listened to the Game Boy Color library that he did. He did a ton. Iku Mizutani did a ton of Game Boy Color games, and his solo stuff on the Game Boy Color just like made me realize how good of a composer he is and how much I love his stuff. That is one of the reasons why I picked him. Is I love really energetic Japanese action game music, but also he takes a lot of influences from a lot of other sources. I mean, this song in particular is a very rockin' song, very like metal oriented, so to speak. I feel like almost like a bit of a Queensryche vibe in a lot of ways, like some really heavy kind of Queensryche songs from some of their older material. But in a way too, there's like a little bit of Iron Maiden in there. There's also a little bit of jazz flow to it, especially that drum beat, it's got a swing to it, like but I love the sound tone that he uses on all of his songs. It just sounds so crisp and clean, and there's this really awesome echo that just like resonates the songs, especially like the 8-bit stuff, that like that's what Natsume is like known for. Like when you listen to a Natsume song, it's a Natsume song, especially an Iku Mizutani song. Those drums more towards the right before it really kicks into that really energetic part. You got the da 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 da, and then it goes. Those drums just don't sound like anything else on the NES. That little series of like whatever they are, like tom rolls or whatever, they just sound so like deep sounding, so like different than anything else I heard on the NES. So like still to this day, like, I'm a big fan of any kind of music that makes me listen to it, and each time I listen to it, I hear either new things or I reappreciate the things that I loved so much about it from the time that I first heard it. So not only does it take me back to the time I first heard it, but it also kind of makes me go, oh man, this is so good. Like, why is this so good?
Yeah.
So I don't know. What were your thoughts on it?
So I'm not familiar with Shatterhand itself. I know that I've listened to some of the music because you've played some of it for me before.
Yes.
And it's great. Like this one in particular was very groovy. Isn't the word, but it's the word that's coming to mind.
Bounce.
Maybe bounce.
Maybe.
But like I really like that main riff that goes over the and like you're right, it really reminds me of some of the really good like heavy metal stuff that I have enjoyed in the past. And it's weird because like I never would have compared it to heavy metal until when you said it, it made the connection in my brain. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I could totally hear this on some like really heavy guitars and stuff. But I think in my mind, I heard this as more of a maybe just like a regular rock song. I wouldn't quite go classical, but there are other ways that I know that you can kind of interpret some of these sounds.
Sure.
But like when you look at it through the lens of some of his influences, it really kind of colors where it comes from and where it's going.
Yeah, I remember him specifically mentioning the Moody Blues and some of the like Japanese jazz fusion bands that were out back in the day. It really kind of makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. His stuff is just really unique and very complex. You listen to the loops, and sure, they're repetitive, but at the same time, there's just so much to them that, and things just keep changing, you know what I mean? Like, you could listen to the songs just over and over again. They just never lose value to me. They're just always excellent. So, we don't talk too much about Iku Mizutani, and the reason for that is, I don't know, I'm selfish, and I want to do a full episode on Natsume in general, which I'm sure we'll eventually get to. But just real quick, just to touch on a few games, he did Tailgater, which was a Game Boy game, Shadow the Ninja on the NES. He originally started with Rock and Rage, doing sound effects on that in 1986. Then he started working with Konami on games like Russian Attack and Metal Gear. So, I mean, he's done some amazing work on those. Russian Attack's like one of my favorite NES game soundtracks too, or just really arcade game soundtracks. Love that game and the soundtrack for that. But then he kind of like, he stayed with Natsume for a very long time after he left Konami, working on a bunch of like licensed games for like Game Boy Color, stuff like Action Man, Search for Base X, which has a phenomenal soundtrack, Croc 2, Pixar Monsters Inc. I think he did the Game Boy Advance version possibly on that. He did a bunch of Power Ranger games like Time Force and Lightspeed Rescue, which all have amazing soundtracks. I can go on and on, but the final game that he is credited for is a game called Hero Must Die Again, which came out in 2020, and he was the sound manager on that one, which really means the songs are going to sound like his.
Yeah.
Because that's what I tend to notice about whenever he's in a director role or a producer role, is that when you listen to the soundtrack, you're like, oh man, this totally sounds like Iku Mizutani. So yeah, that's no accident. I think he has a lot of influence over composers in that aspect, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to shut up about Iku Mizutani and let you get to your next one. So,
all right. So next up on my list, or next up on my mountain carving, whatever you want to call this. Yeah. This is going to be from Dr. Mario, a 1990 NES game, and this is Hirokazu Hip Tanaka's Fever track. Welcome back. That was Hirokazu Hip Tanaka's Fever from Dr. Mario on the NES in 1990.
How do you think he got the name Hip? Like the nickname Hip Tanaka?
I just assumed that he was, a hip guy. People were just like, yo.
Yeah.
That Hip Tanaka over there.
I remember being a kid and thinking his name was Hip Tanaka because that was his name in the credits, and it wasn't until I started doing podcasting that I learned, his first name is Hirokazu. Whoops. I thought it was Hip Tanaka this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what people call them, then that's, are you Michael Levy or are you Mike Levy?
I guess that's a fair point. Yeah.
So it's
Hip Levy.
Michael Hip Levy.
Yes. How much Dr. Mario did you play?
Oh, as a kid, a lot.
Yeah, same here. It's a great game.
Yeah, it was different because Tetris was everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's even a Dr. Mario and Tetris combination game
on the N64, right?
Yep. But Tetris was all over the place. There was a couple different games that were these kind of like falling piece puzzle games. Puyo Puyo was I think was getting big around the time that I discovered Dr. Mario. Yeah. Dr. Mario was very simple. Like there's really you start off with red and blue, and then they start adding more colors of viruses as you go on. Yeah. But it had a very low learning curve. Like Tetris. Yeah. Tetris wasn't that bad, but I very quickly get overwhelmed with Tetris. I'm no good. I'm garbage at Tetris.
Really?
Yeah. I can get maybe to level 2 or 3, but once things start speeding up, my brain just shuts down. It's like, you don't know what to do or where to put these things.
Yeah,
and I just end up killing myself.
Yeah, I feel like once you really jack up the levels in Dr. Mario, though, it gets to that level. It gets to that point where you really got to know where to go and what to do. And if you don't, you're going to screw it up and then you're just going to die instantly. But what I like is that you can change the level in Dr. Mario. So you don't need to start at level 0.
Oh, yep.
You can change all the way to the very last level and then just get crushed.
Yes.
So it's and everything in between. It's a cool game. It's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. No, I think the what made it more manageable for me was the fact that Mario throws these pills and they just have 2 colors, potentially 2 colors.
Yeah.
They could be both sides could be 1 color.
Right.
But it's
red, blue, or yellow.
Yeah. But it's less to think about because at that point it's just okay, where are the colors and where's this going to be the most helpful to me? And yes, as it gets faster, it's harder to do that. But with Tetris, you've got multiple different shapes, and some of them are only going to fit in certain areas, and it overwhelms me way too quickly.
Yeah. Tetris just, I liked it. I thought it was good, but man, Dr. Mario is just so much more fun. It's just more exciting, and the fact that there's that Mario tie-in. Yep. I will say, when you clear all the viruses, they kind of all shake each one when you finish each one, and then they disappear, right? But if you don't, and the viruses defeat you, It plays this. It goes do, and then you hear this, and it just keeps doing that. And then eventually, if you just sit on that menu and watch the viruses taunt you, eventually the music has this creepy noise that just it's like a hiccup. It's like a and then there's silence. And for whatever reason, when I was a kid, when that part would come up, it would creep me out, and I don't know why. It because it's the absence of music, maybe, or there was music, and then it got creepy because it got silent, and they're still taunting you. I don't know. It's like a weird, like, scary moment in video games for me as a kid. It's super strange.
I don't remember that. I don't know if I ever really waited around that long. But yeah, no, that I can see that being creepy, especially when you've got music going on and things happening, and then like it just stops.
Yeah.
Like, when it's silent and things are still moving on the screen.
Yeah.
I can see that being creepy.
Yeah, it's strange.
So I picked this track because I feel like it is one of, if not the most popular Hip Tanaka track out there. I know Chill is your favorite track from Dr. Mario,
yes.
But in the world at large, I feel like most people would say their favorite track between the two is probably Fever, and maybe Brental Floss has something to do with that. I mean, he did the Dr. Mario with lyrics that was very funny.
Yes.
Or maybe it's just that this is the one that people heard more often. I'm not sure. Like, this is the one that I always remember.
This was the first track.
Yeah. So, like, Chill, I can never remember it off the top of my head. Like, I need somebody to start it, or I need to hear the beginning of it before I can go, oh, yeah, no, I know that song. But, like, oh, but yeah, like this one, you say Dr. Mario to me, and I just go do 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 do, like it's just in my head.
Yeah.
And then as we listen to some of the other versions as well, I'd never realized that the N64 and so a lot of the later versions of this track are actually slowed down. Like, this is a faster version of what is used later.
And they threw in a lot of sound effects in the later versions of this song. Yeah.
Very,
a lot
very
of duck quacks and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep. And then the Game Boy version is also pretty good. I was originally going to pick the Game Boy version, and then decided against it because I feel the NES version is just a little bit cleaner. The Game Boy version feels like it's trying to emulate the NES version too much, and some of the noises sound more like noise than they do like drums or anything else.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah,
okay.
It didn't feel as clean to me.
I don't think I've ever played the Game Boy version, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Just a lack of color.
Right.
That'd be my biggest issue with it.
Yep.
And then I don't think we need to talk about Hip Tanaka.
Oh no, we've talked about Hip Tanaka
a lot, yeah,
throughout these shows. I mean, if it's a Nintendo game, it's basically either Koji Kondo or Hip Tanaka.
Yeah, or Kazumi Tataka.
Oh yes, Tataka.
Right. Right. All right, well then we'll get into my next pick. So this should come as no surprise to anyone that listens to XVGM normally. I'm a massive Castlevania fan, and Castlevania Symphony of the Night is one of my favorites. This came out on the PlayStation 1 and the Saturn. The Saturn version came out in 98. The PS1 version came out in 97. Wandering Souls is the name of the track we're going to be listening to today, and it is by Michiru Yamane.
You're listening to XVGM Radio.
You're back, and that was Castlevania Symphony of the Night. That came out on the PS1 and the Saturn in 97 and 98, respectively. Wandering Souls was the name of the song, and that was by Michiru Yamane.
Oh, man. So, little trivia about this track, actually. The game's title screen sound test calls this track Wandering Souls, but the library sound test calls it Wandering Ghosts.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you can find it both ways online. But
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah, nice. I think I've heard it called Wandering Ghosts more than anything else, but like when I saw Wandering Souls, I knew which track you had picked.
Yeah.
Do you remember which area this plays in?
This is in right before you get to Richter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this is the Colosseum music.
Yeah, the Colosseum, that's it. I can almost never... I remember the chapel.
Yep.
And that's the one that I remember the most, honestly. And I've played through the game like multiple times.
Same. Before you get to the inverted castle, the Colosseum, I think, is where I tend to grind if I need to to grind stuff out.
Yeah, it's a tough area.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of difficult monsters.
So it's a fully loaded area. You get these elevators that go up and down that you gotta traverse through, multi-layered. It's cool. Fantastic game and amazing soundtrack. Kinuyo Yamashita is credited largely for creating the sound of the first Castlevania along with Satoe Terashima and Hidenori Maezawa. But I gotta say, I think Michiru Yamane takes the cake for me as far as like developing the Castlevania sound to what it exists today, like what we know it now. They took what those composers, along with like Kenichi Matsubara and all the composers on like the Super Castlevania 4 soundtrack were doing, and just kind of gathered up all the references and all the sounds and everything, you know, the Baroque classical influences, the dance stuff, the rock stuff, the metal stuff, the jazz stuff, like the acid jazz stuff, the big band stuff, and you hear that in this song. Like, this entire soundtrack is just loaded with all different types of genres of music, but it all kind of has this like Baroque backbone to it, which is, to me, the sound of Castlevania.
Right.
So I've always considered it like Baroque era classical music merged with all these different genres, dance, rock, etc., jazz, you know, whatever. But yeah, I love this big band vibe that kind of comes in with those horns. Da, da, da,
yeah.
You know, da, da. It's such a exciting piece of music. It was really tough to pick something for this because literally almost every song I could pick from, and there's one that I specifically did not pick, which is probably my favorite on the soundtrack, and that's the Tragic Prince.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is that one when you see the giant skulls. With their teeth,
tower.
They go when they come after you. Yeah.
It's not the clock tower. I think that's the tower.
Right, but it does lead into the clock tower. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And that area, you can't really like explore it much without the bat power. So you just kind of like...
because it's big open.
Right. When you get the double jump, you can kind of explore it further and you can advance a little bit. But like until you get the bat power, like you really kind of can't see everything that's in the air or whatever. But
yeah, because there's also a secret area up and to the right. And whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, no, this track, I agree with you. I'd be hard pressed to pick a track from this game as my favorite because there are a lot of really good ones. Like I also like the track in the caves.
The waterfall one?
I think so.
Yeah, I almost picked that one too. My issue with that one, and my issue with picking specific songs that I absolutely love, is that they stick to one genre for the most part. Like a lot of these tracks, like very few of the tracks really do have like everything mixed together. I feel like this song does. You know, you've got the more dancey kind of, you know, jazzy vibes to it, but then on top of that, you also have soothing strings in there. And there's a lot of like hidden stuff in the background too that you'll catch later on in the track too, that when you go back and listen to it on headphones, you're like, what is that? What is that sound? You know?
Yeah. I really like how the way that the track opens, it always gets me. Like it kind of has this ethereal opening, and then it gets ghosts, really, really hard with the. I guess it's like keys that where it gets in the.
Starts off with the cymbals.
Yeah. But I can never quite place the instrument. I want to say it's like a harpsichord and something else. But the way that it's used is just it's really cool. Good pick. And Michiru Yamane, fantastic.
Yeah. Went on to do so many more soundtracks for Konami with the Castlevania series, right up to the more recent Grimoire of Souls. Returned to do that, as well as Ritual of the Night for Bloodstained, working with Koji Igarashi on that. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon as well. That is her main selling point, is, she's now the Castlevania composer lady. So, but she's done other stuff too. She did a really cool jazz soundtrack for, like, a jazz big band soundtrack for Skullgirls, which had a really good soundtrack. And otherwise, I mean, she's just contributed like a bunch of Konami stuff over the years. I don't think I've ever heard a song from her that I didn't like. So she's one of my top favorites. All right. Well, you got another heavy hitter coming up.
Oh, yes. So I know many of our listeners that will be very happy to hear this name. This is going to be Yuzo Koshiro, and I have picked a track from the newer ActRaiser Renaissance. This came out on Switch and PC in 2021, and I've picked the Super Famicom version of the Alka Leone track, which does not appear in the original ActRaiser. This is an area that was created for the new game, and Yuzo Koshiro redid all of the music for this game. So when you play, you can choose to listen to the original Super Famicom version of all of the music or the new fully orchestrated version.
So this is a brand new Super Famicom track.
Exactly.
That's phenomenal. Yep. That, I think, just sold me on buying this game.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a great game. I love it.
I love the original, so let's do it.
Welcome back. That was the newest of the Yuzo Koshiro bangers, Alcaleone, the Super Famicom version from ActRaiser Renaissance, which came out in 2021 on the Switch and the PC.
I'm curious on your take on this, because I have a lot to say about Yuzo himself as a composer for VGM, but I'm curious about your take on this.
So, Yuzo, I'm mostly familiar with Yuzo from the ActRaiser game. It was another one of those games that when I encountered it as a kid, I had a friend who had the game, he let me borrow it, and I borrowed it multiple times, and it was difficult because he liked the game as much as I did. I just could never get my hands on a copy for myself, so it was unfortunate. But, oh man, there's so many tracks in the original game that I really loved. Like, the opening track was great, the Fillmore track was great, Blood Pool. I really liked what Yuzo's music did for the game. Like, every area felt unique and it felt appropriate. Even when you were in the action levels and you were hearing the music, it was action music versus when you were doing like the SimCity style stuff. It was more just like theme music for the town. And I mean, they even call attention to it in the game by one of your towns eventually develops music, and then you can share that with the other towns and spread this joy. As someone who is very interested in music and plays different instruments, I really appreciated that they did that in the game and also had just these tracks that were killer.
I love the fact that Yuzo Koshiro is so passionate about old hardware that he goes and takes like the PC-98 or the PC-88 or whatever he's using, the NES, the Super NES, whatever he's using to record. He knows these methods of recording on original hardware so well, and he appreciates them. To the point where he will go and make brand new music in that sound style to be used in new games like this. Just phenomenal. He does the same thing with the series The Ancient his company worked on. So I love his passion for retro hardware. That's, I think, my favorite thing about Yuzo Koshiro. Aside from that, he's a phenomenal composer, and I'm so glad that you picked him so I didn't have to.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there are so many great games just under his belt. I feel like Yuzo Koshiro is one of the composers that we touched on a handful of times, but I don't feel that we've really ever taken a deep dive into his history. And I mean, it spans so many genres, so many developers, publishers. Like, he just has so many great things out there. Like Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, like we were just talking about Castlevania.
Right, he worked with Mishiro Yamane.
Yeah, and he was a composer on Portrait of Ruin.
Yeah.
We did an episode with Rhythm Pixels on Wonder Boy and Adventure Island, and Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom in 2018. He was a recording director on that.
Super Adventure Island.
Yep, and that as well. Etrian Odyssey games.
Yep.
Just so like
Wangan Midnight.
Yeah,
the racing games. Wangan Midnight.
Yeah. I mean, even ActRaiser 2, the game I did not care for, but the music was at least fantastic.
Absolutely. I absolutely love ActRaiser. It's one of my favorite Super NES games. It's got a phenomenal soundtrack, as you said, but I kind of had written off the remake because a lot of people said it wasn't good. I remember when it came out, I was reading that like a lot of people were really negative, kind of poo-pooing on it, but the fact that he went and did new music in the Super NES style, I mean, like, I did hear some other people that were closer friends of mine be like, oh, it was great. Like, it was a great game. So I'm probably going to grab it.
Yeah, I can imagine some people probably didn't like some of the things that were added to the game. They added more of a kind of tower defense type of a thing, which I don't believe was in the original game. Like, the original game had, you built your town, you had to defend it and whatnot.
Right.
But, like, there are actual, like, segments where everything kind of stops and you have to build structures and defend your town from attacking monsters.
Okay.
I'm not a big tower defense guy. I don't hate tower defense games, but, like, it's not like I don't go out looking for tower defense.
Sure.
But I really enjoyed those sections. Like, I didn't find them to be super difficult. Later in the game, they do get harder, but so does everything else. So, like, it wasn't, like, disproportionate. I should also mention, this game came out on more than just the Switch and the PC. It also came out on iDevices, Android, and PS4.
Oh, that's wacky. Okay.
I think those came out afterwards, though. I believe
the Switch port was, I believe, the first and only way to play it for the time being, and they did like an exclusive timed exclusive sort of thing. So.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I think I also said that this was the latest banger from Yuzo Koshiro.
Yes.
That is not quite correct, because in 2022, Yuzo Koshiro was the main composer on a game called Soul Cresta.
Yeah.
And that's on the PS4, Nintendo Switch,
it's a shooter.
PC. Yep.
Right. So. Yeah. He also did, I think, the intro music to The Takeover, which is a beat 'em up. Either the intro music or the first stage. I can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah. Channeling his Streets of Rage roots. So. All right. I'm going to go ahead and be predictable again and play something from Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest. And that came out in the Super NES in 1995. This is Lockjaw's Saga by Mr. David Wise. Welcome back to Masters of VGM, our dedication to video game music composers that belong on our fictitious Mount Rushmore, I guess you could say. That was Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest. Came out in the Super NES in 1995. That was by David Wise, and it's Lockjaw's Saga. I think the thing that really stands out to me in this song
are the drums.
Yes, definitely the drums. That little echo that's on the drums, really nice. It's a heart-pounding song, and it kind of echoes the levels that you're playing this through, which are all inside of a pirate ship. One is like an underwater one, where you have a single lens, I guess you could say, from, I think the character's name is Glimmer, who's like a specific type of fish. When he turns... his lantern or his eye or whatever turns too, so it like lights the way depending on which way you go, which is like kind of a strobe effect, especially if you're going back and forth like frequently, like I usually do. So there's that level. There's some other levels that this plays in where like you're dropped into a pirate ship and you're just like collecting bananas frantically, and then you land and you've got to figure out where to go and what to do and everything. Yeah, this one, it was really tough and way too easy to pick my go-to, which is the song that we played on when we interviewed him.
Sticker Brush
Symphony, which I love and is easily top 5 favorite VGM tracks of all time. But there's something about this song in particular that I really love. I don't know if it's like the heart-pounding kind of vibe that it gives you, the drums. I don't know what it is, but it was really hard to pick a specific song from this. I almost went with the song that we talked about during the episode when we had David Wise on the show. So Lockjaw's Saga is just a really phenomenal track that I love this entire soundtrack from top to bottom. And it's my favorite Donkey Kong Country game, despite the fact that I have super nostalgia for the first one. This one is just the better game, the better soundtrack. Everything's better about it. So What are your thoughts on this one? Because I don't think maybe we talked a little bit about Donkey Kong Country 2 or just Donkey Kong Country in general during the episode where we talked to David Wise and Grant Kirkhope about Yooka-Laylee and all the games that inspired it. But what about you?
So, not a lot of experience with the Donkey Kong Country games. They weren't my thing when they came out. But this track was kind of intense. So, definitely the standout was those drums. I like the reverb effect on them. I thought that they were really powerful. And the feeling overall that I get from this track is one kind of... is kind of a tense feeling. Like, it feels like there's either something hunting you or you're in a very precarious situation.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that is kind of what's going on in the levels, and if that's the case, then I think it's communicated very well in the track.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if you're being hunted, but like the enemies are a lot more intense in these levels, I would say, so maybe that's part of it.
Higher danger.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Before you get to this part, all the rest of the music is very lighthearted, very floaty pirate music kind of, and this really kind of amps up the danger vibe that the game gives off. And throughout the entire game, you will experience moments like that too. It's pretty amazing, just the entire soundtrack, top to bottom. It's good stuff. David Wise, we've talked about him a lot. We've had him on the show. I think he might be the only person on this list that we've actually had on the show.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's just really cool to listen to a David Wise track and think, I remember listening to this as a kid. I remember listening to this now, and nothing has changed about my opinions on it. It's still the same. And listening to his modern stuff too, you really get a sense of who he is as a composer. You know, you really kind of vibe out to his tracks and learn, like, when you hear a David Wise track, you know it's a David Wise track. You know, and I think that's the thing about a lot of these composers is when you hear their stuff, you know it is them. Yeah. You can tell right off the bat, like, that's a Nobuo Uematsu track. That's a Hip Tanaka track. Yep. That's a Yuka Mizutani track. So, you know, that's, I think, a really important signifier of this music.
I would agree overall, although I think I will challenge you on my final pick because this person actually can cross genres pretty well.
Yeah, this one is one that I did not expect you to pick, truth be told.
No. So this is me channeling Rob from Rhythm and Pixels. Okay. Legit, I do love this composer, and we'll talk about the impact after we listen to the track. Cool. But we're going to take a hard right turn into DDR 5th Mix. This came out in arcades in 2001. The track is Dynamite Rave. This is the long version, and it was composed by Naoki Maeda.
Techno rave, it's time to understand and pave the way. So
right, welcome back. That was the last face on my Mount Rushmore, Naoki Maeda, with his track from DDR 5th Mix, Dynamite Rave. This is the long version. The vocals on this done by Val Tiatia and Brenda Birch, and this came out in arcades in 2001.
Oh, man.
Taking it way back.
Love it. Oh, man. I have not heard this song in a really long time, and it was nice to hear the long version for a change because I've just played it endlessly on DDR, like on the games itself, and it's always the short version, so that was pleasant.
Yeah, I think the short version is like 1 minute and 34 seconds.
Right.
It's not enough.
No, definitely not, no.
But yeah, like you said, kind of surprising because I don't think I really talk a whole lot about DDR. And it was a fairly big section of my video gaming days in the early 2000s. I'm trying to remember when it came out or when I became aware of it over here. And I want to say it was either my senior year of high school or it was shortly after or before I went to college. So, I mean, it was right around that 2001 time frame. But I know when it first came out, like I saw it and I was like, what the heck? We play video games in here. I don't want to work out. I want to play games. And then, one of my friends got into it and I was like, oh, okay, like I see the challenge. And then as soon as I got into it, I just got sucked in.
Yeah.
Dynamite Rave was probably my favorite song for a very long time. And then, Kick the Can was one of my favorite songs because it was the first one that I actually could do on Maniac mode.
Nice.
But there are so many tracks on these games and they all have, different artists and whatnot, until you look into them and actually find out that Naoki Maeda just made up artist names so that the games would have, a variety of songs. And
I didn't know that. That's really cool.
So I think this one actually says that it's by Naoki. It's funny, I didn't realize that until I was listening to the episode of VG Embassy that Rob was on, where Rob and Ed talked all about DDR, and he mentioned that, and I was like, no, like same thing happened. Blew my mind. I was like, no way. And I went and looked up, like almost all of my favorite songs were Naoki Maeda. It's like, that's phenomenal.
That's awesome. Rhythm Police.
No, I don't think Rhythm Police was him. But Max 300, Paranoia,
okay.
a lot of the Paranoia mixes.
Feel.
Trip Machine, Angel Beat.
Good stuff. I love DDR. My first exposure to it was with our mutual buddy Kevin. We went into this place called Smiles.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Smiles here in Connecticut. And we would go and, like, I was terrible, of course, at first. I mean, I was playing on light. Yeah, we would play in the arcades and play. And then eventually we got the home versions and we would play that. And I remember he went out and made his own metal pads.
Oh my God.
And then we would play on those. There's even a picture floating around on my computer of us all posing with the metal pads. And it's basically like, well, our college career is over. We're going to just play DDR for the rest of our lives. Man, yeah, we played so much DDR and got really into it. And it was a lot of fun. I was always like, I couldn't really do anything beyond standard. Heavy just got too heavy for me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like, the hard stuff was legitimately hard. Granted, it's been a long time since I've played, so I never got the hang of, I want to say trots, but I don't think trots is the right word.
Oh, the ones that it's like half steps, like
that stuff. I could never get the hang of it.
Yeah.
Like Rhythm and the Police, the heavy version has a lot of that, and I could really only play that on standard.
Yeah. I was more into the flow and vibe of standard, too. Like, it just, to me, sounded more, rhythm-based, so to speak. Heavy was just, like, balls to the wall, like crazy to me. But standard, like, a lot of the songs are like, dot, 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 dot. Like, it had more of a flow and rhythm to it that I could get on board with. So I always preferred playing on standard because of that. So, like, I remember playing Neverending Story with our buddy Chris Murray, who's a patron and fan of the show. And I remember we'd be like, never ending story. And like the whole like part where it's like story, it'd just be like arrows. And like, I remember just watching him go bananas on the arrows and being like, I'm never going to do that ever. Like, I'm completely happy with being on standard and just like vibing out to the song and getting a good workout and a good dance. But you totally blew my mind. So thank you for that.
I haven't really gotten any of the stuff on the show because I just feel like there hasn't really been a good opportunity to, and it's not just like shoehorning an artist in just because I want to get a song on. Like,
but this is your master of VGM.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like there are so many great tracks that Naoki did that I feel like he deserves a spot on my mountain.
I feel like we really went uphill with newer stuff, and we're now approaching the end of the show. And my final pick is probably the newest composer on this list, and that would be Jake Kaufman. So, big fan of his. Shantae Half Genie Hero is the game that we're going to be playing from. It came out on the Wii U, the PS4, the Xbox One, Switch, Vita, and Windows in 2016, and kind of like all the ports like all over that as well. Tasseltown is the name of the track we're going to hear, and it's by, again, Jake Kaufman. Hey, you are back, and that was our final pick from Masters of VGM. That was Shantae Half Genie Hero, the Wii U, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, Vita, Windows game that came out in 2016, and all other releases all over the place. I don't know. Games been ported endlessly. Tasseltown was the name of the song, and that was by Jake Kaufman. What are your thoughts on this one?
That was really bopping.
Yes. So good.
Yeah, I listened to this actually a couple times over the last week just because I was checking out what you had in our document, and this is the one that I actually came back to a number of times.
Nice.
I don't have as much experience with the Shantae series as I wish I did. I got Shantae and the Pirate's Curse.
Great game.
Very great game. I think I got it on both the Wii U and the DS as part of like a Humble Bundle or something.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
I never went back to like the Game Boy game or anything, but I've wanted to play and check out the other ones, like, what is it, Risky's Revenge, and this one, this Half Genie Hero.
Yeah, this is when they finally brought it to HD, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Is this the one that has the Friends DLC where you can play as Roddy Tops?
Yeah.
And okay, yeah, I really need to grab this one because I ended up going down a Shantae rabbit hole the other day and was just like, oh man, I forgot about Roddy Tops. And like a lot of the official art for Roddy Tops is way cuter than it has any right to be.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
She's a zombie for crying out loud.
I know.
But yeah, she's a cute character, and a lot of the characters in these games are super adorable.
Yeah, they are.
So
yeah, they're pretty awesome. Big fan of the Shantae series. One of my favorite franchises. It's interesting because I've been following the game since the original, but I didn't get the original until maybe like 2007 or 6 or something like that, when I found the Game Boy Color cart, randomly at a GameStop. I was like, oh man, I meant to pick this up and never did. And so I bought it, and now it's like $1,000 game. Loose.
Oh my God.
Loose. Crazy.
I'm glad you got it when you did.
Yeah. Which is just bananas, because that's just how the video game market goes for secondary stuff. But I, really liked playing Shantae. I played it on my Game Boy Advance SP and loved it. And then I was eagerly awaiting the one that was potentially going to come out called like Shantae Advance or whatever, and it never came out. They were working on it, eventually became Risky's Revenge. Got that on the DSi. It's pretty much one of the main reasons why I waited until the 3DS came out, and then I bought it on there.
Okay.
And that was like literally the first game that I bought digitally on the system, and just loved it. And just have been buying all the Shantae games ever since then. And to me personally, Jake Kaufman is the only person that can compose. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I think there's one other person that can do it, and that would be the guy that we interviewed for our very first composer episode, Coda.
Right,
because Coda can really emulate that Jake Kaufman style and sound, because he's done it before. He's covered songs, on the soundtrack as kind of bonuses. They're friends, like, I really think that if Jake never comes back to do a Shantae game, I think Coda should definitely be the fill-in, for sure. But what I like about Jake's style is that he utilizes a lot of musical genres of all different kinds. I mean, he does the big band, he does the metal, he does the dance, he loves doing the funk. He does so much just randomness, and it's all kind of backed by like a Middle Eastern vibe for this.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, but in addition to that, him growing up Jewish and with a father who's a cantor. I know this because I actually talked to him about this in like a comments section or something like that, if I recall. And he was doing these remixes of like classic video game songs, but in like a totally different genre or style. So one of the first ones that he did was Cutman from Mega Man 1, and he did it in the style of like Jewish music, like traditional Jewish music. And I was like, this is amazing. And I think I told him like in the comments, like, I grew up Jewish and everything, like, this really hits home for me. And he was like, yeah, my dad was a cantor, I think he said. So him growing up with that love of that type of music really showcases like that Middle Eastern vibe in this track that's kind of like fluid throughout the entire thing. So you get those really unique horns, those very like Middle Eastern sounding horns, with the they got like very like tweaky kind of like low end. It's interesting. It's not quite like a saxophone. It's more like I don't even know, like an oboe or something like that. It's cool. I really enjoy listening to this one. This is one of those tracks that you can't help but nod and bob your head to, because it's so funky, but it's also so unique and different. So, and all of his music kind of sounds different in a way. I mean, he's done everything and anything. He's done 8-bit stuff. He's done newer stuff. He did the Shovel Knight soundtrack. He did, so much stuff. When the newest Shantae game came out, I was all ready to, go in head first. And then I heard the soundtrack, and it wasn't by Jake. And I was just like, oh, crushed.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to sit here and knock that composer because that would be just wrong. And the songs I did hear were okay. They just were not Jake Kaufman. They weren't what you were expecting. Right. It'd be like listening to Castlevania music and expecting Castlevania music and getting like, I don't know, Mario music. You know what I mean? Like it was so out of left field for me that it just didn't have those Middle Eastern vibes mixed in with like the dance and funk and 70s disco vibes that this track presents, where you could just picture a girl wearing roller skates, spinning on the roller rink, to her heart's content while a disco ball spins in the background. That's what I picture when I listen to most Jake Kaufman music. Either that or ballroom dancing or like a elegant yacht. There's also in this part of the game, in this level, there's a character that's like this snake girl. And she pops up out of, all the characters are like on the cusp of sexy, but like for the female characters, they're on the cusp of sexy, but they're also like super cutesy too. So it's like a weird vibe that has somehow managed to avoid being like rated teen. All the Shantae games have been rated like E7 and up or something like that. I'm like, okay. But anyways, she pops up out of this jar and she's like dancing and she's doing like I don't even know what that is. It's like a prayer, like put your hands together and like praying. But she's like doing it in a circle while she's like grooving, and she's going along with the music, and it's like completely hypnotizing to like listen and watch that snake girl like vibe out to this song. So often what I would do is I would just like, I'd be talking to her and she'd be, like, what do you want? Because she was like offering you something for sale or something like that, or something to trade or to give you a power up. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it would get to that part where she would be doing the dance in this particular level, and I'd be just like vibing out to it, watching her. Like it was like mesmerizing. I was like, somebody's gonna like shoot me with one of those darts and I'm like pass out because I'm like entranced by this random snake girl. That's our Masters of VGM. Nice. What do you think? Good stuff, right?
I enjoyed it. There was a lot of great music. I feel like we shouldn't pick our favorite tracks because that would be a dishonor to... No, screw it. Let's pick our favorite tracks.
This is so hard, though.
It is. It really is.
You know what I think we should do is you should pick from my favorite tracks. Because, like, I know I love... my stuff, and you love your stuff, so you should pick from my stuff and I'll pick from your stuff this time.
That's still hard because I like all the stuff that you played. I will probably go with the Wandering Souls track, Michiru Yumane, because I've got a lot of nostalgia for that track and that game.
I'm gonna go with ActRaiser. Just hearing new Super Nintendo music is just such a joy to hear. So that's going to be my favorite from yours. Secondary, though, because I haven't really played it, I'm going to go with that Final Fantasy IX track. That was just really beautiful. Loved it. Yeah. What are your Masters of VGM? Leave a comment in our Discord, in email, social media. Let us know what you thought of this episode. And please go check out Masters of VGM. Again, that's mastersofvgm.com, where you can get access to 20 plus podcasts that are doing the exact same thing that we are doing, sharing the love of the masters of video game music composing.
Yes, check them out. Show those other podcasts some love. And there appears to be some kind of a voting going on. I'm actually not clear if that's voting based on what is being played in the podcast or if there's actually a voting system.
Oh, maybe.
Either way, check it out because that's what this whole big shebang is all about.
Absolutely.
So, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Alex Messenger, Cam Worma, Chris Hart, Jordan and Anson Davis, Rage Cage, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Scott McElhone, Chris Myers, Bedroth, Brad Austin, Chris Murray, Llama Adam, Marcus Stewart, Scott Brackett, Nick Davis, and Ryan McPherson.
If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/XVGM Radio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
If you like what you've heard, please consider giving us a review on iTunes.
You can join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at www.facebook.com/groups/XVGM Radio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks or just talking about the podcast itself.
You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle on both those sites is at XVGM Radio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links in the show notes. All right, Justin, in a month, we're coming back with a new episode, and it's going to be episode 92.
Yes.
What do we got?
So in July, we are going to be teaming up with a new composer named Nicole Marie T.
Yes. Yeah, she did the soundtrack for Ghoul Boy, and she's done a couple other like random games that we wanted to talk about, and we're happy to bring her on the show. So in 1 month, we'll be talking to Nicole Marie T. Mm-hmm. So this is Mike
and Justin
signing off for XVGM Radio. I wanted to just highlight the fact that when I went to go look up Koji Kondo's profile, I typed in Super Myro Boars. I don't know, I was typing so fast, and I typed faster than the speed of light could take me to putting words that don't exist onto the search bar. So Super Myro Boars. And of course, like, I didn't get it. So
yeah. Of course not.
I want to like test the waters with that. Like, see how jacked up I can type in the words Mario Brothers
and still have it come up.
Yeah. So we'll have to play with that a little bit.